Let's talk about something that most women never get told, yet every woman deserves to know. Why some women have men chasing them. Not because they're the prettiest, not because they play games, but because there's something magnetic about their presence. You've seen it before. A woman walks into a room, not the loudest, not the flashiest, yet heads turn. Men straighten up. Women glance over, not out of envy, but out of curiosity. She doesn't chase attention, but it finds her. She doesn't compete, she attracts. And here's what most won't tell you. That energy isn't about beauty, it's about power. The kind of power rooted in stillness, confidence, and depth. It's called dark feminine energy. And once you understand it, really understand it, you'll stop asking why men don't chase you and start asking yourself why you ever chased them. So if you're ready to unlock the quiet, unshakable force that makes a man want to pursue, protect, and prove himself to you, stay with me. This isn't about manipulation. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about remembering who you are. Before the world told you to tone it down, to be nice, to hide your intensity, because feminine power, when it's fully embodied, doesn't chase, it commands. And today I'm going to show you why men chase some women and how to become the kind of woman who naturally draws that pursuit without trying. Now, before we dive in, make sure you subscribe. This space is for women who are done shrinking, done overgiving, and ready to step into their full feminine self with elegance, depth, and emotional intelligence. All right, let's begin. 1. The magnetism of mystery. The women men chase aren't open books. They are poetry with missing lines. You can feel them, but you can't quite figure them out. And that's what keeps a man intrigued. See, in today's world, everything's about instant gratification. We overshare online. We tell people our stories before they've even earned a paragraph. But mystery, real feminine mystery, has become rare. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. Men are hunters by nature. They're drawn to discovery. When you give everything too soon, your feelings, your fears, your validation, you remove the chase. You remove the wonder. Mystery doesn't mean being secretive or manipulative. It means being selective. It means understanding that your emotions, your softness, your essence, they're sacred. Not everyone deserves front row access to your inner world. There's a quote by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, the author of Women Who Run with the Wolves. She wrote, "A woman's soul is not meant to be tamed, it is meant to be understood." And that's the thing. A man will chase what he cannot easily understand. Think of Cleopatra. She didn't chase. She invited curiosity. She mastered the art of being both seen and unseen. When she spoke, she gave just enough to provoke interest, but never enough to satisfy it completely. The dark feminine understands this balance. She doesn't fill every silence. She doesn't rush to explain herself. She lets a man wonder. Ask yourself this. Do you leave room for a man to be curious about you? Or do you hand him your entire story before he's even earned your trust? Because mystery is not about withholding. It's about protecting your energy. And when you protect it, you become magnetic. 2. Emotional sovereignty. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of feminine power. And one of the reasons men chase some women while they take others for granted. Emotional sovereignty means you own your feelings, your reactions, and your peace. You are not a puppet pulled by external strings. You do not crumble because someone didn't text back. You do not explode because someone withdrew. You feel deeply, but you govern those feelings like a queen governs her court. And here's the truth. Men are drawn to emotionally grounded women because they represent something rare: safety. Not the kind of safety that comes from pleasing, but the kind that comes from stability within yourself. The dark feminine doesn't numb herself to emotion, she refines it. She can cry, but she doesn't collapse. She can love, but she doesn't lose herself. She can walk away even when it hurts, because she knows her value doesn't shrink just because someone couldn't see it. Men chase women who have emotional boundaries because subconsciously it signals maturity. A woman who can hold space for herself without demanding constant validation stands out in a world full of emotional chaos. Remember this: the woman who is least reactive often has the most power. Why? Because she's not controlled by anyone else's behavior. When a man pulls away and you respond with silence instead of panic, you create polarity. When you express what you feel, but do it calmly, with self-respect, you show emotional mastery. There's a reason the queen archetype is central in feminine psychology. She doesn't beg for loyalty, she inspires it. She leads through presence, not pressure. When you embody emotional sovereignty, you're no longer at the mercy of who likes you or who doesn't. You become self-validating. And that changes everything. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you held space for your own emotions, without rushing to fix them or drown them in distraction? That moment, that stillness, is where your dark feminine begins to awaken. 3. Soft power and the art of stillness. We live in a culture that glorifies loudness, louder opinions, louder confidence, louder everything. But soft power? That's what truly shakes the room. Soft power is what makes people lean in when you speak. It's the strength that doesn't need to shout. It's the energy that says, I am enough as I am, and I don't have to perform for your approval. The dark feminine knows how to be still. She understands that stillness isn't weakness, it's awareness. She observes before she reacts. She reads energy before she responds. Think of Queen Nefertiti, or even Michelle Obama. Neither of these women had to raise their voice to dominate a space. Their presence was calm, measured, graceful, yet undeniably commanding. That's soft power. Men chase that energy because it makes them feel something most modern women don't. Peace. And peace is addictive. Let's be honest. The world is noisy. Everyone's competing, complaining, proving, arguing. But when a man meets a woman whose energy feels like exhale, he can't forget it. You know why? Because she doesn't chase validation. She emanates value. She listens more than she speaks. She knows when to let silence do the talking. She makes eye contact that lingers just long enough to leave a mark. Soft power is about energetic composure. It's saying, I don't need to convince you of who I am. You'll see it if you're paying attention. Here's something powerful to think about. When was the last time you allowed silence to speak for you? When was the last time you resisted the urge to explain or prove yourself and simply stood in your truth? That's stillness. That's dark feminine grace. And that's what keeps a man chasing, not because he's confused, but because he's captivated. 4. The aura of self-possession. You can spot a self-possessed woman the moment she enters a room. She doesn't rush, she doesn't seek, she simply is. And every part of her body language says, I belong here. Self-possession isn't arrogance, it's ownership. It's knowing that your worth is not determined by attention, titles, or comparison. It's the energy that says, my approval comes from within. Men chase this energy because it's rare. Most people, not just women, operate from a place of need. They want to be liked. They seek reassurance. But the woman who is self-possessed operates differently. She doesn't need to prove she's desirable. She knows she is. And that quiet knowing radiates through everything she does. When you're self-possessed, you move differently. You speak slower. You make deliberate choices. You don't rush into relationships or conversations. You take your time because you can. And that's the secret. The dark feminine isn't in a hurry. She doesn't chase outcomes. She allows them to unfold. Because she trusts her energy. She trusts her timing. Psychologist Carl Jung once wrote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Self-possession is exactly that. Becoming conscious of your power instead of letting insecurity direct your choices. When a woman fully owns herself, her emotions, her sensuality, her standards, she creates a gravitational pull. Men feel it, and they respect it. Let's get honest. When you're desperate for validation, it leaks through your energy. Men can feel that. It makes them comfortable, but not inspired. When you're self-possessed, it challenges them to rise. It activates their instinct to earn your attention. That's why men chase self-possessed women, not because they're difficult, but because they're disciplined. Ask yourself, do you own your energy, or do you let others dictate how you feel, how you speak, how you show up? Because the woman who owns herself is untouchable. She doesn't compete, she doesn't chase, she chooses. 5. The feminine dance between light and shadow. Every woman has both, the light feminine and the dark feminine. The light is nurturing, compassionate, radiant. The dark is magnetic, mysterious, powerful. Together they create balance. But many women have been taught to suppress the dark, to always be nice, agreeable, forgiving, accommodating. And while those traits are beautiful, they can also become prisons if they're not balanced by strength and discernment. The dark feminine doesn't reject kindness. She refines it. She knows when to nurture and when to detach, when to speak softly and when to walk away. Men chase women who embody both energies because it's dynamic. It keeps them engaged, emotionally and mentally. It gives them polarity, light and depth, softness and fire. Look at women like Angelina Jolie or Beyoncé. They embody duality. They can be sensual yet grounded, compassionate yet commanding. That's what draws men in. They feel the range. The light feminine says, I give love. The dark feminine says, but only to those who can hold it. Let that sink in. When you suppress your dark energy, you become too accommodating. You say yes when you mean no. You forgive without boundaries. You give without discernment. And that's when men stop chasing, because there's no challenge, no polarity, no edge. But when you reclaim your shadow, when you allow your intensity, your passion, your standards, you bring life back into your energy. There's a concept in mythology called the sacred number. It's the idea that saying no is as holy as saying yes, because both protect the integrity of your soul. The dark feminine understands that. She doesn't say yes to avoid rejection. She says yes only when her intuition agrees. And that's what creates respect. When a man knows your yes is real, your no becomes powerful. He trusts your word. He feels your integrity. So here's the question. Have you been hiding your dark feminine to be liked? Have you silenced your truth to seem easier to love? Because the moment you stop doing that, the moment you integrate both sides of your femininity, you stop being forgettable. You become unforgettable. Here's something most women never realize. A man's chase isn't about how you look. It's about how he feels around you. And your dark feminine energy is what creates that emotional impact. The mysterious woman keeps him curious. The emotionally sovereign woman keeps him grounded. The woman with soft power makes him feel peace. The self-possessed woman earns his respect. The woman in balance, light and shadow, keeps him captivated. Each of these layers builds upon the next. Together, they create that magnetic aura that makes a man not only chase you, but value you once he does. Because here's the truth. Feminine power doesn't come from attention. It comes from alignment. You are magnetic when you are centered. You are unforgettable when you are authentic. And when you understand that, when you stop chasing and start embodying, that's when everything in your life begins to shift. Men feel it. Opportunities align with it. And you begin to move through the world with the quiet knowing that you are enough, without needing to prove it to anyone. This is what I call the reclamation of feminine power. It's not about pretending to be strong. It's about remembering that you already are. So as you sit with this, ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stopped performing and started embodying? Because that's where your transformation begins. 6. The energy of surrender, without losing yourself. Now this is where most women get confused. We talk about power, independence, and boundaries, and somehow surrender starts to sound like weakness. But the truth is, surrender is not submission. It's strength in its purest, most refined form. Surrender means you trust yourself so deeply that you can release control without fear of losing power. It's when you've healed enough to open your heart, not because you need someone, but because you choose to. Men chase women who know how to surrender, because that energy invites them into their masculine purpose. It gives them space to lead, without stripping you of your strength. But here's the catch. You can't truly surrender if you're operating from fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of not being chosen, fear of getting hurt again. When fear runs your relationships, surrender feels impossible, because trust feels unsafe. That's why healing is so important in feminine work. You can't embody dark feminine energy if you're still acting out of unhealed wounds. A healed woman doesn't chase, control, or overgive. She simply opens from a place of discernment, not desperation. Imagine this. You're seeing a man who's genuinely interested. He's consistent. He's pursuing you. The old you might have tried to take over, planning everything, leading every conversation, filling every silence, just to feel safe. But the woman in her dark feminine, she allows. She lets him show effort. She receives. She gives space for him to be the man. That's surrender. It's the quiet confidence of knowing you can let go, because you trust yourself enough to walk away if you're not valued. Here's the paradox. When you stop trying to control a man, he naturally wants to earn your trust, because your calmness tells him something powerful, that your heart is not up for negotiation. It must be won. Surrender is the balance between openness and self-respect. It's the ability to flow without abandoning your boundaries. Ask yourself this: have you been trying to control love out of fear that you'll lose it if you don't? Because the moment you let go, not recklessly but gracefully, you open yourself to a kind of connection that feels both passionate and peaceful. And that's what draws a man deeper. He doesn't just want your body or your time, he wants your trust. Because that's the one thing he knows he cannot buy, demand, or fake. That's why the most powerful women in history, from Cleopatra to Josephine Baker, all understood the art of surrender. They knew that true feminine power isn't in control, it's in knowing when to release it. 7. Unapologetic desire and the sacred yes. Now this is where the dark feminine completes her evolution, when she's no longer afraid of her own desire. We've been conditioned for generations to mute what we want, to make ourselves smaller, quieter, easier to digest. But your desire, your wants, your passions, your standards are sacred. They are the compass of your soul. When a woman suppresses her desire, she becomes numb. She loses her fire. But when she honors it, not recklessly but reverently, she becomes radiant. Men chase women who are unapologetically in touch with their desires, because desire is energy. It's aliveness. It's confidence wrapped in sensual awareness. This doesn't mean seduction for attention. It means living fully, walking like you belong to yourself, dressing, speaking, and creating from a place of authentic pleasure. That's what makes your presence unforgettable. A woman in touch with her desire doesn't wait for permission to feel good. She creates her own pleasure. She knows that joy is her birthright, not a gift that someone else must grant her. Psychologist Esther Perel says, "The erotic is not about sex, it's about vitality." When you awaken your desire, your creativity, your curiosity, your sensuality, you awaken your magnetism. And here's the truth: a man will chase the woman who makes him feel alive. Not the one who gives him everything, but the one who radiates wholeness, passion, and mystery. Unapologetic desire is the highest expression of the dark feminine because it merges freedom with intention. It says, I know what I want, and I'm not afraid to claim it. That energy, it's intoxicating. It's the same energy that built empires, inspired art, and changed history. When you look at women like Mata Hari, Frida Kahlo, or Eartha Kitt, they weren't loved because they conformed. They were loved because they lived. Your desire is divine. It's not too much. It's not selfish. It's your soul's language. And when you start listening to it and honoring it, you stop chasing anything that doesn't align with it. So ask yourself, where have I dimmed my light to make others comfortable? Where have I said yes when my soul screamed no? Because your sacred yes, the one that comes from your intuition, not your fear, will change your life. It will lead you toward people, places, and passions that amplify your power instead of draining it. And once you start living like that, once you let your yes be bold and your no be holy, that's when men don't just chase you. They revere you,